Last week I praised Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson has been criticized at times. Lamar Jackson hasn't played well in some big games. Lamar Jackson has had some misfires throwing the football, but for the most part, I can't truly recall any missteps with the media. It's always on him. It's always about the team. It's always about winning. It's always about the right things. Things go wrong, his fault. Things go right, credit my guys, credit my team. Nobody cares, work harder, right? That's the t-shirt, that's the slogan, that's the mantra, that's the way of life. And I've been one who has been openly, not necessarily critical of Lamar, but I just think, to me, I try and paint a realistic picture. A realistic picture. And here's the realistic picture of Lamar Jackson. When he was about to be drafted, he wasn't impressive at the whiteboard at the combine. People thought, and I talked to several people who met with him, that he was behind, that he was a very quiet kid, he was a very nice kid. There was no negatives about him. It was just, he wasn't, most quarterbacks walk into a room and they naturally take over a room. That wasn't him. Then, in an effort to get a hold of him, and of course there was the, do you want to line up and run the wide receiver routes? That was one scout. I know the boss of that scout who asked him, and it had nothing to do with anything other than kind of a quip, and it's because he is, in fact, the fastest quarterback anyone has ever seen. And it was more putting that speed and elusiveness on display, more so than, do you want to play wide receiver or running back? Nobody thought, by the way, he's a running back. And for people, including Lamar Jackson, who have pushed back on he's the running quarterback, he's actually run the football more than any quarterback in the sport in modern history during his time as a starter. So somehow everyone is bad and negative and against him because they said he's a running quarterback, and he's in fact a running quarterback. Is he not? Okay. My issue with Lamar is that what he does best, he will be asked eventually to do less of. What he needs to improve on the most is what he'll ultimately have to do in order to win a Super Bowl. And for the record, there somewhere is audio over at ESPN way back in the day when Mike Vick was with the Atlanta Falcons and Carson Palmer was with the Cincinnati Bengals. And I said, look, if I'm going to take a quarterback for their career, and this had nothing to do with the dogfighting, I'm going to take Carson Palmer. Why? Because what Mike Vick does best, he will ask to do less. Be asked to do less. What Carson Palmer does best, he will be asked to do more and more and more. Carson Palmer's a fantastic athlete, had an incredible career, and had a better career than that of Mike Vick. Now, I still believe that Sam Darnold has greatness in him, but it's really hard when you're on the worst team in football. And there have been times in which there hasn't been progress, and there's been some regression. But the point about Lamar is, what can you do on third and long? What can you do when you're down a touchdown or two late in games? Can you put a team on your back throwing the football? And oh yeah, by the way, then there's the other elephant in the room. The more you run it, the more likely you are to be hurt, because when you run it, you become a runner or a running back, and all bets are off in terms of how they can hit you, even though last week he dove, got hit when he dove, and they called a penalty anyway, even though you're allowed to hit him in the way in which he dove. But Lamar has been better throwing the football, especially last year, than anyone could have thought. Part of that was the offense. Part of that is the personnel, the three tight ends within the offense. And part of that is his own buy-in to a need for improvement on his fundamentals. This year, it hasn't been as good. And I told you last week that there's a very, very similar trend compared to Colin Kaepernick. When I say Kaepernick now, it immediately makes people think of politics and kneeling before the flag. That's not what I'm talking about. Colin Kaepernick came in and he replaced Alex Smith. The Arizona Cardinals went to the NFC Championship game the year before And honestly, it was 2 fumbles on special teams that caused them to lose a game to the Saints, not their quarterback play. But Alex Smith had topped out by most people's estimation. And after playing a nearly perfect game against the Arizona Cardinals on Monday night, he had a concussion in the next game. Kaepernick replaced him, and the offense exploded. Remember that he dominated the Packers in the playoffs. The next year, they're 13-3, losing the Super Bowl. Dominate the Packers in the playoffs. The third year as a starter, people start to figure it out. His inaccuracies, his inadequacies become more obvious. The team finishes 8-8. Here's Lamar Jackson, who I had praised repeatedly for always answering questions in the right tone, in the right tense, in the right feeling on the Rich Eisen Show.
I feel, it's a lot of with schemes. We're going against defenses. They calling out our plays, stuff like that. Like, they know what we're doing. So a lot of that, sometimes, stuff won't go our way if they beat us to the punch.
So you're hearing on the other side of the line of scrimmage the defense calling out your plays? That's what
they definitely do. Like runs, stuff like that. Watch out for this, watch out for that. Sometimes that's what's going on.
In other words, that's the, you know what, it's my fault. I blame Greg Roman. Our schemes are too simple. Why do we think they're too simple? Right? Can you disguise some stuff? Sure, you can disguise some stuff. Now, I don't know the reality to how much more creative you can be. I do know that there is a trend there with Greg Roman. There is a trend with all of these styles of quarterback, these styles of offense. Do you think that NFL teams have not run college offenses for years because they of any other reason they don't think they work long term? Do you think that Greg Roman doesn't throw more complex schemes at Lamar Jackson because he doesn't think it would work? I mean, it's whatever the real reason for the Baltimore Ravens offense struggling. The fact is that the first thing Lamar Jackson needs to say is, like he always has, it's on me. We got to be better. We got to figure out a way to be better. You don't have to let the world in on the fact that everybody knows your offense. Everybody knows what you're doing. And in many ways, you can take it as a term of respect. Right? We made them look so bad last year that all they've done is study it the offseason this year, and they're calling out our plays. That's actually being respectful. They legit believe that you have to spend extra time because it's different. But there's also the reality of whether it's Roman style or just what they think Lamar can handle. Like, look, dude, we can't put you with 4 or 5 wide. You haven't shown that ability. I don't think anyone would argue otherwise. If we really believe that it's play calling, okay. Let's see. I've heard other people say, well, it's play calling. You think? Do you think that was Greg Roman's play calling bad last year when they won an MVP? Is it that Greg Roman can't evolve, or that Greg Roman doesn't think Lamar Jackson can evolve? Last year, Greg Roman was a genius. This year, Greg Roman's a dope. Understand? Right? So, here's me being critical of Lamar Jackson. Whatever's in-house, keep it in-house. Whatever frustrations you have with the offense, keep it with the offense. Because what you just did was you just started up a Mack truck and took your offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, who helped build you and build that offense into one in which you won an MVP in the National Football League. And you threw him under the bus. And then you backed the bus up and ran over him again. Yeah, they know our plays. They call out run. They call out pass. Too simple. That's the opposite of who he's been. Maybe this is a snapshot of what a guy's like when people criticize him. Maybe there's some reality to it. Probably is some reality to it. But do we think Greg Roman wouldn't call better plays if he thought your team could execute them? I don't know. It's going to be fascinating in Baltimore. You know, they lost Ronnie Stanley, their best tackle, the highest paid tackle in the league. He's out for the season. That dramatically changes their effectiveness. People have figured out Lamar Jackson. The division is really tough with the Steelers who already beat them, with the Browns, and frankly, the Bengals. Their schedule is tough because, you know, they finished last year 14-2. It is an unrelenting schedule. But the Ravens can beat themselves from within, and their starting quarterback, who has always said the right thing, throwing his offensive coordinator on the bus, is the beginning of beating yourself.